Alright, I'm kind of filming this in a cobbled together mess of an order. Hopefully I can edit it halfway decent. But this is, the rear air went out. This is a Trailblazer EXT. Rear air went out and it wouldn't do anything. So, troubleshot it down to the fact that it was the, this module, some sort of auxiliary module. Basically, what used to be an old resistor, you know, multi-resistor deal. Well, now they've made it into some pulse width modulated complex $90 freaking sensor. But anyway, or not even sensor, control module. But so anyway, if your AC goes out, try to film this as I'm going back down in. I already did the troubleshooting. I already ran it all soldered up. I should probably show that in the next clip or something. But I made basically like a jumper pack. The only problem with that is you have to actually unhook it every time you want to turn the rear air or the blower motor off. So this is where I ran the wire. You know, you can see it poking up through the sail panel. That's where I ran the wire so you could unhook it quick. But it was a lifesaver on a 2-hour road trip. Actually had rear air when it was 90-something degrees out going to my brother's wedding. But yeah, if there's a will, there's a way. So it was different. You did have to, I had to make sure that the blower motor was actually on one of the numbered steps. If it was on a numbered step, it would blow cold. If I actually set it to rear with the front control, it was blowing hot. So just something to be aware of if you end up making one of those, you know, basically rigs that that I soldered together. Just so you know, if you're like me and you procrastinated on actually troubleshooting and then couldn't get the part in time, that's one way to get it to work. But now I'm going to put this piece of crap back together. Alright, well, this probably isn't going to be very relevant to a whole lot of people anymore, but if you're still rolling around in a Trailblazer EXT or Envoy XL, one of the GMT 370 trucks or SUVs with rear air, this piece of shit has been the bane of my existence. This is the speed control module for the rear air, and instead of just using a resistor, which would have been easy, GM used some solid state electronics to pulse width modulate for the fan speed. So there's no way to jumper it out and just get high like the old resistors used to. When they would die, you would only have high speed. Well, this, it would die and you'd get nothing. So instead of well, pretty much because I procrastinated and didn't order a module in time, didn't troubleshoot it in time to find out I needed a module. I got a road trip tomorrow, and taking a road trip with hot, sweaty kids doesn't work out very well. So what I had to do is did some investigations, and this is your 12 volt hot. This is, I don't know what it is, some little gray wire, doesn't do a whole lot. And then these are both ground wires. And what this thing does is it's switching your ground when it's pulse width modulating. So I just took a little wire and soldered the two grounds together to basically hotwire this son of a bitch. And I did some testing and it didn't run anywhere near as hot as when it was actually pulse width modulating. I think the heat it was giving off was actually just probably from having 20 something, maybe, yeah, it's got diffused at 30 amps, so 20 something amps are running through it. So it got a little warm, but nowhere near as warm as when the little IC chip was doing its thing. So we'll see if this actually works. You'll only have high, but high will get you by. Later. Alright, so the first thing I did, I pulled all the screws out of that panel over there. You know, you got to pull out the stupid package tray deal. Pull out the 5 screws down there. And then you got to just pull this trim piece off. It's just those push-in clips. So you got to pull that guy loose. I didn't even take the seatbelt hanger and retractor off. Who's got time for that? So same thing up there. You leave that one on. You just kind of pull it out of the way, and then so I'm trying to figure out how to keep you guys in the landscape. Jam a 2x4 in there. You know, nothing crazy, just so you don't have to hold it. I was a pain in the butt trying to hold it when I was troubleshooting it the other day, so just wedge a 2x4 in there. You know, obviously don't pull it hard enough to smash stuff, but I just wedged the 2x in there. And then there's you know, that bolt, this metal piece has to come off. There's 2 up top, 2 on the bottom if I remember right. That thing's got to come off, and then we'll take out that bolt and that bolt for the whole thing, and then we can sneak it over. I'll put a pry bar in there, pull it over a bit, and then wedge another 2x or 1x in there, whatever I can fit, and we'll go from there. Alright, so here's what your module looks like. It's kind of it's not kind of a pain in the ass to get to, it's a real pain in the ass. It's actually in the back side of the heater box. You can't even really see it from where you're at. Hopefully I'll find a blow up picture of it from the manual. And I just found it online off a forum. But you gotta snake your hand back in through this freaking hole, and then you reach down and you'll be able to feel it. It's actually like kind of closer to probably being right behind this guy on the other side of it, but you'll feel it down there. Connector faces down, not up. It won't go in up. Tried that. So the connector faces down. So this wire right here I pulled it out this way for my cheater, but it'll have to go back down through there. And then the screws are T15 Torx, and they're a pain in the ass. So getting them out is a pain in the butt. This is actually like a T15 Torx bit in a 1/4-inch socket. So one thing you can do to help keep everything together and not lose it in the quarter panel is wrap it in some electrical tape. I like using phasing tape. That way when it comes off it doesn't leave a residue and you don't have to use a solvent to take it off. I don't know why, but that is the nice part about colored electrical tape. I usually have good shit because I'm an electrician, but I don't know, maybe the cheap stuff still does leave a residue, but it doesn't leave it like black. But anyway, so I actually got the screw taped to it, but just the head of it, so that once it actually gets tight, I should be able to still pull my bit off of it, so I'm not losing it. And they feel long as hell when you're trying to get them off in that tight quarter panel, but the screws are only probably, you know, 3/4 of an inch long, but they do have some sort of thread locker compound on them from the factory. I'm not using it going back together, but that module does need to go in there and get bolted down because there's a little stream of air that blows on it. Because that module, what it's actually doing is pulse width modulating the fan. So whatever, I forget if it's I forget what kind of chip it is. I knew it at one point. But anyway, whatever's in there, it ends up getting really hot, and this aluminum on the back of it is actually like a spreader. So if that cold air is not blown on it, it'll get too hot and it won't work. So it actually does need to be mounted where it is. I tried when I was messing around with it, seeing if I could mount it somewhere else and just have it heat sink off, but maybe it'll work with a new one, but I don't want to dick around with this thing any more than I have to anymore, so it's going to go together the right way. Alright, I'm going to get to it. Alright, so I got the sensor down in there, got it plugged in, got it screwed down. I just want to show you guys I had to move my 2x4 there. And then got a 1x jammed in between the basically rear heater box and the side panel there. Just watch out when you're prying on stuff because the window is right there. Don't go all freaking nutso and pry on it like an idiot and bust out your rear window or something, because all this metal does flex when you're doing it, so just be careful. Don't get a huge chunk of room. You can pry this out. I had to pry it out a little more than I do last time. Or you can always just grab a little bit more room, you know, pry up on your 1x, get yourself a little more room, because you probably will cut your arm up on this piece of sheet metal. I know I did last time. I still got some scrapes and shit on there from it, because it is a pain in the butt. Oh, and by the way, make sure when you're using a 1x, they use the sharpest one possible that you can try to poke your eye out on, because that's real smart, because that's what I am. Alright, so I evidently got something else going on here. Put that module in and it worked fine if you'd put the controls on 1, 2, 3, except the fan didn't blow very hard, at least not as hard as I realized it can blow when you've got that hot wired module in there. So I was like, well, that sucks. But one of the things that I also saw with the hot wired module is on 1, 2, or 3 it would blow ice cold AC. When you'd put it to R for the rear controls, it would go blowing straight to hot, which obviously no good traveling in the summer. You're gonna get some kids heat stroke in the back. So I got that module, the whatever the hell module that thing was, I forget the actual GM name for it right now, but I slammed that thing in and it's still doing the same shit. So I started fooling around with stuff, and what I did is I popped the rear control module out just to see what it was, and all it is actually some oh Jesus Christ, some resistors, the variable resistors with the detents in them. God damn it, can't remember it right now. But anyway, GM in their infinite wisdom, they didn't use the entire range of the detent, so they only used the center of the range. Like, this switch needed 4 positions, so they only used 4 positions of the switch. But if you actually pull the knob off, there's more positions available. Now in this case, it doesn't make the fan speed go higher, but what it did do is, well, I guess I just kicked it off high, but what it does do is, in the case of hot or cold, see, that's just resting on there right now, it's not pushed all the way on. If you turn this thing to where the button actually seats, it's only to there, and once you get to there, the system starts blowing hot air out the vents. So it must be resistance based, and who knows, maybe there's some corrosion in a wire or whatever else is going on. But if you actually pull this knob off and you can turn that thing further, you can actually get it cold blowing out the vents. So as crazy as that is, it must just be the controller, because there's like 3 freaking modules back there. That one I replaced in like 2 more. So one of those modules is evidently looking for a low resistance for cold AC, and evidently there's maybe corrosion on the ground or corrosion in a pin somewhere, probably increasing the resistance. So you, without taking the knob off, you actually can't get the value into the right range. So it's not worth troubleshooting this anymore to me. I can live with this, especially now that my wife can control the fan from the front, and if we really need to cool it down, now we can actually get cold AC with a high fan speed from this control box. But yeah, the joys of modern conveniences. I'm sitting here spending a day working on getting the rear air done. Growing up, we were lucky to have front air. So if you don't feel like losing a day of your life to troubleshooting, just crank the windows down, roll with the 260 air. But yeah, as of right now, we've actually got working rear air, and it's cold. So Yay. If you like this video, like, comment, or subscribe. I'm going to keep filming my antics, and we'll go from there. One last thing to leave you guys with. Just walking around the truck, and I noticed I had, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 drips. Didn't seem like anything coming out of the rear air. So what I did is I peeked my head under there, and hopefully this will come out. There's next to the refrigerant lines, there's a little black nipple. You can see it dripping right there. Well, it wasn't really dripping like that. And on AC systems, sometimes the drain for the boxes, they'll have those little rubber nipples on them to keep them closed, so that they're not, you know, you don't have insects, whatever, getting in there making nests in it. Well, sometimes they collect sediment, dust, dirt, whatever the hell, spilled a gallon of milk in the back, whatever the hell ends up falling into them. So what you do is you work it almost like working the nipple on an udder. You keep working it around, pinching it between your fingers. Pretend it's your old lady. Twist that thing up pretty good and work it around, and you'll get a nice clump of brown crap out of there. And I ended up working, you know, basically all this water you see on the ground plus a little more that ran away. It was all pooled up in the quarter panel, or probably the AC box. But if for any reason you have like a mildew smell coming out of back there, you can hear water sloshing around, that's probably your culprit. Later.